We are back with Governor-elect Dan Malloy, who's going to continue talking about GAP.
Well, I want to pick up on Pat's question or comment. I mean, the legislature would not impose generally accepted accounting principles as the law of the state of Connecticut because it makes the job more difficult. That's why a new governor coming in has to do it. We're going to change the rules. We're going to be transparent. We're going to be truthful. Come what may, that's what we're going to start doing. We're not going to play the game that we have a surplus when we don't have a surplus, and that's what we did for most of the last 20 years. And so those days are over. This is an ugly, ugly situation. We're going to begin. First, we stop digging the hole, and then we get out of the hole.
So aside from the budget, how do you go about the hiring process? You already have a chief of staff in place.
I do.
And there's plenty of commissioner positions to fill. And do you ask for everybody's resignation and then go from there?
I believe the governor's asked for everyone's resignation. So we go from there. What we will do is we'll fill positions. Believe me, a lot of people are contacting me about employment with the state, from within the state and from outside the state. This is a great transition period nationally. A lot of new governors have been elected. So we're going to look for the best people. Some of those will be Connecticut people. Some of those may not be Connecticut people. Some may have political backgrounds. Some may be from commerce. What I want is an administration that's filled with people who can get the job done, who have the backgrounds necessary to have, so that the people of Connecticut can have faith in them. So we'll do it. And I'd like to start rolling some stuff out relatively quickly.
Does that include keeping on some of Governor Rell's commissioners?
Entirely possibly. I think there are some good commissioners, some of long standing, that I'm happy to have a conversation with.
And in that vein, Governor Rell made a big issue of a clean break from the Rell administration, et cetera. But the truth is, a good percentage of the commissioners were holdover from the Rowland administration. I mean, you're just going for the best people. It doesn't matter whether they're in the administration now.
It doesn't. I mean, there's good Republicans, good Democrats, good independents, good Connecticut citizens, good people from out of the state. This is an open process. I think ultimately you'll recognize some of the folks that we're putting into positions because they've been involved in one level or another in government. But some of them will be surprises. That's just the reality. There are about 28 commissioner positions. Lots of deputy commissioner positions. There's lots of positions to fill. And doing all of that, we're also mindful of a commitment that I made that we will not fill about 15% of those kinds of positions as a down payment towards the kinds of sacrifices that I'm going to ask the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and everyone in the state to make.
You had mentioned that the state has not been really great at getting in federal dollars for things like transportation, that you had great success as a mayor getting in that federal money. What's your relationship like with our congressional delegation? What's your relationship like with the
I think it's pretty. I think Dick and I have been friends for many, many years, and certainly know all the Congress people. Certainly have a long-term relationship with Joe Lieberman. So listen, this is not going to be a problem. There'll be a gigantic difference between my administration and the current administration. That is, I'm going to go to Washington a lot. I'm going to be down there a lot. Even in my transition period of time, I'm going to be calling on cabinet secretaries in Washington, making sure they know who I am. I had conversations yesterday with 2 cabinet secretaries. I've begun that process. We're going to be in it to win it, which means we've got to be down in Washington on a regular basis. I want to look at the operations of the Connecticut office down in Washington. I'll reach conclusions about whether they've been active enough. There may, we're going to take a look at that.
Interesting.
And a little bit closer to home, you paid a visit to the Republicans, as we had mentioned before, in the state legislature, and you did get some pushback in that they won't go along with any sort of new revenue if it's in the form of taxes. But the reality is you really don't need their votes. You still have majorities in both houses. How do you see that playing out?
Well, listen, when I first got elected mayor of the city of Stamford, let's give a little history. 2 of my first 4 appointments were of Republicans. Now, listen, Republicans have good ideas, Democrats have good ideas, unaffiliated voters have good ideas. I'm not the super partisan politician, and the reality is I'm more fiscally conservative than any governor who has served in the last 20 years. Period. But I'm also more progressive than any governor who's served in the last 20 years. And I don't think those things can't exist together. In fact, they do exist, at least in one person, Dan Malloy. So I'm prepared to work with everybody. Now, am I surprised that Republicans don't want to raise taxes? No, I'm not surprised at that. Am I surprised that Democrats don't want to cut a lot of things? No, I'm not surprised by that. So this is going to be a very different kind of administration where we listen to everybody and we make judgments and we make recommendations. We're going to be very activist at the level of the legislature. Showing up at the Republican caucus was great fun. I meant it as a tribute to the fact that those folks are elected and reelected. They are my partners in governance. I hope we'll have a working relationship. There was one interesting thing that came out of that. After the leaders had called me this wild liberal big spender for months, the very next day they said I ran as a moderate. Well, I wish they had told the world that I was a moderate the day before Election Day. Maybe I would have had more than 5,600 vote plurality.
What has this been like on a personal level for you? I mean, all of a sudden, you're the governor-elect. You have a 24/7 police detail with you. Have you taken a moment and been like, oh, my God, I'm governor?
Would you ever have a dream come true?
Listen, this is something that I wanted to do. I believe I have the skill set necessary to lead the state of Connecticut in its greatest financial challenge. It's something I prepared for all of my adult life, whether it was as a prosecutor or a volunteer on boards and commissions in Stamford or mayor of the city of Stamford for 14 years. This is the challenge that I accepted. This is the challenge that I wanted. I'm excited about having the opportunity to build an administration that will take Connecticut through the difficulties that it's currently facing.
Excellent. We appreciate you taking the time and we wish you good luck. We're all interested in seeing how the transition goes. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we're going to have Tom Foley to talk about what his next plan is going to be.